ಹಾ ಹ್ಮ್ ಅಲ್ಲ ಎಷ್ಟೊತ್ತಿಗೆ ಅಂತ ಹಾಕ್ತಿಲ್ಲ, ಟೈಮ್ ಹಾಕಿಲ್ಲ, ಯಾವಾಗ ಹೋಗ್ಬೇಕು? ಹಾ ಎಷ್ಟೊತ್ತಿಗೆ ಬನ್ರಿ ಅಂತೇಳಿ ಟೈಮು ಹಾಕಿಲ್ಲ. ಈಗ ನನಗೆ 8:25 ಕ್ಲಾಸ್ ಇದೆ. ಕ್ಲಾಸ್ ಮುಗಿಸ್ಕೊಂಡು ಫೋನ್ ಮಾಡ್ತೀನಿ ಎಷ್ಟೊತ್ತಿಗೆ ಬರ್ಬೇಕು ಅಂತ. ಅಂದ ಹೋಗ್ತೀನಿ ಅಷ್ಟೇ. ಇಲ್ಲ ಇಲ್ಲ, ಫುಲ್ ಸುಸ್ತಾಗತ್ತಂಗ ತೊಗೊಳಕ್ ಬೇಡ ಅಂತ ಹರಾರ ಮಹಾದೇವನೇ ಹೇಳಿದ್ದ. ಬೇಡಪ್ಪ, ತಗೋಬೇಡ ತಗೋಬೇಡ, ಯಾವ ಕಾರಣಕ್ಕೂ ತಗೋಬೇಡ. ಹಾ 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 ಹೌದು. ಓಕೆ ಓಕೆ ಅಮ್ಮ, ಓಕೆ ಓಕೆ ಓಕೆ, ಬಾಯ್. ಹಲೋ. ಗುಡ್ ಮಾರ್ನಿಂಗ್ ರಮೇಶ್. ಈಗ EMI ಸೈನ್ ಮಾಡಿ ಅಂತ ಅದು ಯಾವಾಗ ಹೋಗುದು? ಟೈಮ್ ಹಾಕಿಲ್ಲ, ಎಷ್ಟೊತ್ತಿಗೆ ಹೋಗೋದು? ಕರೆಕ್ಟ್ ಅಮ್ಮ, ಎಷ್ಟೊತ್ತಿಗೆ ಅವ್ರು ಬಂದಿರ್ತಾರೆ, CS IS ಎಲೆಕ್ಟ್ರಾನಿಕ್ಸ್. ಸರಿ, ಫೋನ್ ಮಾಡ್ತೀನಿ. ಸರ್ ನೋಡಿ ಸರ್, ನಾವೇ ಟೇಪ್ ಹಾಕ್ತೀವಿ. ಗೋಡೆ ಹಚ್ಚಿದಿರಲ್ಲ, ನಾವೇ ಟೇಪ್ ಹಾಕ್ತೀವಿ. ಅಲ್ಲಲ್ಲ, ಅದಕ್ಕೆ ಬಿಡಿ ಸರ್, ನಾವೇ ಟೇಪ್ ಮಾತ್ರ ಹಾಕಿದೆಯಲ್ಲ, ಮಾತ್ರ ಹಾಕಿದೆಯಲ್ಲ. ಎಲ್ಲಿಗೆ ತರಿಸ್ಬೇಡ, ನಾನೇ ಹಂಗೆ ತಗೊಂಡು ಹೋಗ್ತೀನಿ. ನೋಡ್ಬಿಟ್ಟು ಕೊಡ್ತಾರೆ ಕೊಡೆ. ಹಂಗೆ ಕೊಡೆ. Good morning everybody. Dawood, can you unmute and tell me the screen is visible and audible? Dawood, Rasul.
Yes sir. Yes sir.
Dawood, visible enough? Dawood, speak.
Yes sir, visible. Yes sir.
Can you listen my words?
Yes sir.
Okay. Screen is visible?
Yes sir.
Yes sir.
Okay. And noise is clear?
Yes sir.
Okay.
Yes sir.
Say, last class we discussed about how to produce the casting. Before that, we discussed how to produce a component using various manufacturing processes. So, in the introduction of casting, so what are the things required for casting production? First, you have to make the casting by using mold. See, the mold may be made by plaster of Paris and permanent mold, and the produced component is called casting. And next, and when the metal required, whether it may be ferrous or non-ferrous, make the metal to liquid form by using heat. Then pour the liquid metal. Then pour the liquid metal into the mold cavity. After solidification, you will get the component. The component may be little bit larger than the required one. After machining, finishing, you can produce the component. So this is the process used for production of casting. Next, come to the point. Already we discussed the pattern. That is, the pattern is nothing but the same size, shape of the component, little bit size more than the component required. And next, the cavity which is required to produce the component. That is the mold preparation. And next, core making. Core making is nothing but producing hole in the casting. For that, all of you say the chalk piece, as we are using in the classroom for writing the material on the board, we are using chalk piece, the same type of codes are used for producing of holes in the casting. Say, all of you go through this diagram. This is the diagram required for producing casting. See, all of you observe here. This is the international standard design and the diagram for gating system. For mechanical engineers, this is very, very important. I will give you the complete notes for this. Say, first, this is the pouring basin. Here, you have to pour the liquid metal, and which you flow through the pipe, just like looks like a funnel. That's called screw. And this is the choke, where from the basin it flows through the choke and flows through the runner. And here you have the ingates. The ingates are the channel where the liquid metal enters in different points of the mold cavity for forming the casting. And after filling the mold cavity, the liquid metal rises in the riser. See, whenever the metal shrinks, remember, see, the volume shrinkage, the volume of the metal in liquid condition is larger than the solid condition. For that reason, the riser is required for all the castings. The liquid metal, after completion of filling the mold cavity, fills the riser, rising in the upward direction. Then, after completion of the solidification, you have to remove the riser, ingates, and projected parts of the casting. That you can call it as unwanted metal or unwanted sections are present on the casting that may be removed by cleaning process or fettling process. See, here you have one more diagram. Here. This is the pouring basin. This is the screw, choke, and the runner ingate, and the liquid metal enters the casting in two ingates and fills this gap. And here you have a riser. Say, this is called blind riser. Blind riser. So whenever the liquid metal fills the mold cavity, along with that, the liquid metal rises inside the riser. So after completion of filling the mold cavity, rises in the riser. So after solidification, so what will happen? There will be a volume contraction in the mold cavity, which requires little bit amount of liquid metal that is supplied by the riser. The function of the riser is to compensate the volume contraction. Compensate the volume contraction. Next, core making that I told you, producing coal in the casting, melting and pouring. Whether the melting is carried out in a furnace or in a crucible, and pouring. After pouring the molten metal, after certain period of time, usually 1 to 20 seconds to 2 minutes. Remember, the solidification time for non-ferrous metal which is carried out, which takes 20 seconds to 2 minutes, non-ferrous metals, and ferrous metals, steel, low carbon steel, alloy steel, and other will take more than 2 minutes for solidification. That is nothing but change the phase from liquid to solid takes place within 2 minutes of time, which ranges from 20 seconds to 2 minutes. Next, come to the point, as we discussed, this is a mold box, screw, runner, gate, riser, mold cavity, core print, core print. Next, all of you, please write down one by one steps involved in making a casting. The second question in module 1, explain briefly steps involved in making a casting. In making a casting, write down one by one. Number 1, pattern. Number 2, mold preparation. Number 2, mold preparation. Number 3, core making. Number 3, core making. Number 4, melting and pouring. Melting and pouring. Number 5, cleaning and inspection. Cleaning and inspection. Next, write down elements of a gating system. Elements of a gating system. Write this diagram. Write down the rough diagram. Clearly show the pouring basin, tube, choke, ingates, casting, and riser. Write down the rough diagram of this. You have to explain this diagram. Elements of a gating system. See, write down the rough diagram. Pouring basin, screw, choke, runner, ingates. This is the mold cavity. In bracket, write down casting. So this is the entire portion indicates the casting, that you can call it as mold cavity. In bracket, write down casting. This is the tapered riser. Tapered riser. Tapered riser. This is the explanation for core making. Say, suppose if you are using sand castings, cores are produced by using core shooting machine, or by using simple method by making the cores just like a chalk piece by using manual operation. By manual operation, by producing the cores using the core shooting machine, or by using manual operation, you can produce the core. Next, melting. Melt the required metal, whether it is cast iron or non-ferrous metal. Carry out the melting in the furnace, and after melting, pour the liquid metal into the mold cavity. Then, after solidification, remove the casting, and unwanted metal present in the casting that may be removed by using grinding operation, fettling operation, and finishing operation. You might have heard shot blasting or sand blasting. See, there will be a controlled environment, looks like a drum. Inside, they keep the casting by hitting the casting with the sand, or hitting the sand with the small balls. That is called shot blasting. If you hit the casting with the sand, that is called sand blasting. From that, they produce the surface finishing. They produce the surface finish on the casting. After that operation, clean the casting by washing or by dipping the casting in the solvent or alcohol or kerosene. Wash the casting, and finally inspect the casting by X-ray method or ultrasonic method or any other method. See that there will be any air bubbles or cracks are present in the casting. Those things are carried out in the inspection. These are the 5 steps are very much required for production of casting. That is pattern and pattern making, mold preparation, core making, melting and pouring, cleaning and inspection. And this is the elements of the mold box, or elements of the gating system, or the steps involved in making the casting. That is the mold wax. Here there will be 2 parts. One is cope, other one is drag. The name itself indicates upper part always called as cope, and the bottom portion is called as drag. If there will be center box is present, that is called cheek. So like this, upper portion always it is called cope, and the bottom portion is called drag. and in that open track, they produce the mold cavity by using pattern or hand cutting. They produce the mold cavity. Next is sprue and runner. As I told you earlier, sprue. This is the sprue and this is the runner. Sprue and runner. So in this section only, the metal flows into the casting. The name itself indicates runner. That is where the metal flows into the casting. Next, gate. This is the portion. This is the section. There will be many ingates are present that are connected to the gate. If a single section is connected to the runner, then it is called gate. Or number of portions or tubes are connected to the runner, that is called ingate. And the riser works as the governor whenever the mold cavity requires the liquid metal, which supplies the liquid metal to the cast mold cavity in order to compensate the volume shrinkage. Say all of you belongs to mechanical engineering. Remember, the volume of the metal in the liquid condition is more. Remember, the volume of the metal in liquid condition is more. When the transformation takes place from liquid phase to solid phase, there will be a volume contraction. The volume contraction may be compensated by using the runner. Sorry, by using the riser. That riser works as the governor which supplies the liquid metal whenever a mold cavity requires the liquid metal. The function of the riser is to supply the liquid metal in order to compensate the volume contraction. Remember, volume contraction is very important for mechanical engineers because the volume of the casting in liquid condition is more. When the transformation takes place from liquid to solid, there will be a volume contraction that you have to compensate through the riser. Riser works as the governor. Riser works as the governor whenever the mold cavity requires the liquid metal that is supplied by the riser. Next, core. Core is nothing but the cylindrical mold or the core which is produced from core shooting machine, or you can produce the core by manual operation. From that you can produce the hole in the casting. Say for this, the core looks like a chalk piece that you have to place inside the casting. That the place where you can fix the core, that is called core print. That is called core print, which looks like a washer which is produced inside the casting where you require the hole. That is called core print. Core print. Core print. These are the points or the steps required for making of the casting. Write down one by one. One by one. Subdivision A, mold, mold box. First, subdivision A, mold box. Subdivision B, pouring basin. Subdivision B, pouring basin. Subdivision B, pouring basin. Next, you write down Subdivision C, sprue slash runner, slew, sprue slash runner, runner. Subdivision D, choke, choke. All of you observe here. This is the choke. All of you observe here. Sprue, after that choke. After that choke. Next, D, runner. Subdivision D, runner. Subdivision E, gate. Subdivision E, gate. Put a colon and hyphen. First you write down gate, put a colon and hyphen. In gates. In gates. In gates. F, riser. F, riser. Subdivision F, riser. Next line write down G, subdivision G, mold cavity. Subdivision G, mold cavity. Subdivision H, core. Subdivision H, core. Last one, subdivision I, core print. Subdivision I, core print. Subdivision I, core print. The end of this module, I will give you the complete notes. You can compare the print, compare the notes with the notes you have daily. You write down the points or explanation every day. Please keep 200 pages king size notebook, pencil, eraser, scale, and protractor and compass. Write down the rough diagram. Whenever I inform you to write, please write down. From that, you can understand little bit. Say, after completion of this module, you have a first test. So just if you go through the notes prepared by you for each and every class, if you go through that, you can understand little bit. So we discussed this portion, we discussed this point in the online class. Next, write down in some of the question paper, you have the flow diagram for making of the casting. Flow diagram for making of the casting. Flow chart or flow diagram. Write down flow diagram or flow chart. Flow chart indicating the steps in a casting. In a casting. Remember, say, throughout your life, always write the title in uppercase letters. In notes or in the examination, wherever you write the title, always write the title in uppercase letter or big letters, uppercase letters or big letters, not in the notes, not in the exam. Always write the title in the uppercase letter or bigger letters. So that is the international standard for writing the uppercase letters. If you write the in uppercase letters, that indicates this is the title of the explanation. Once again, underline that, write down or flow diagram, flow diagram for producing casting, flow diagram for producing castings. Or write down one more title, flow chart, flow chart for flow chart for casting production, casting production, underline that. Write down the flow diagram as you observe in the screen. Same way, write down the flow diagram. First, component specification. Component specification. What is this? Component specification means, you suppose if you have foundry, or suppose if you works as the foundry engineer in a company, first you receive the diagram from the customer, see the specification of the casting. Specification, say you need a cylinder of 20 millimeter diameter and length of 100 millimeter casting. Do you produce exactly the same specification? What is the answer? Yes or no? No, because after completion of the casting, there will be rough surface is present that you have to remove by cleaning operation, fettling operation, and grinding operation. ಹೋಗು. Grinding operation. Then, after considering the specification, the casting is required by using ferrous metal or non-ferrous metal. You have to produce the alloyances, to produce alloyances in the mold cavity. The alloyances are different for ferrous metal and non-ferrous metal. You understand what is alloyance while studying the casting. Then, after considering the alloyances, make the mold cavity by using pattern or by hand cutting. Always the customer provide the pattern or the how to make the mold cavity and what all the allowances required. So after completing this stage, the next stage is raw material and molding. Raw material, whether it may be ferrous or non-ferrous. Ferrous means cast iron, alloy steel, low carbon steel, high carbon steel, medium carbon steel, or the any type of steel, the raw material which is available. Next, the melting. The melting means the melting of the raw material can carry out in the furnace or in the induction furnace or any other system. From that you can produce the liquid metal. Then other step in the preparation, that is molding. The mold can be produced by using green sand, dry sand, plaster of Paris, or permanent mold. Again, here there will be two steps. One is the mold is prepared by using sand, and using pattern you can produce the mold cavity. In the molding step itself, you have one more step, that is core making. Suppose you have hole in the casting. Suppose you have a hole in the casting, then make the core, or and make the core by manually or by using core shooting machine. By observing this screen, you can study the steps involved in making a casting. See, all of you, write down this flow chart or block diagram. For mechanical engineers, this is very important. Write down this flow chart. As I explain this flow chart, along with that, you write down the flow chart. See, after making the mold using pattern mold cavity and fixing the core inside the mold cavity wherever you require the hole, then the next step is assembling the core and all the things for print and painting of the mold cavity, and all other operations are carried out in assembly stage. See, after melting, after completion of the assembly, bring the liquid metal through the crucible or the container from furnace to the foundry section through ladle or through manually or through crane. Bring the liquid metal to the assembly section of the mold section, then pour the liquid metal into the mold cavity. Pour the liquid metal into the mold cavity. That is carried out in the pouring step. Next, allow the liquid metal to solidify. Allow the liquid metal into allow the liquid metal to solidify. That is carried out in the solidification step. Next, come to the point. Within 2 minutes, if it is ferrous, it will take more time for solidification. That is changing from liquid phase to solid phase. If it is non-ferrous, it will make complete within 20 seconds or little bit of more. Then after solidification, remove the casting from the mold blocks, remove the unwanted metal, runner, riser, ingots are removed by chipping operation or grinding operation, that is carried out in the fettling stage. Fettling stage. And next step is heat treatment. All of you heard, all of you studied a heat treatment in third semester in material science. See, the grain structure required by the customer in the casting, which is carried out in the heat treatment process. Heat treatment process is nothing but heating the casting below the recrystallization temperature and allow the casting to cool in the open air, or dipping in the water, or dipping in the salt bath, or dipping in the oil. You can produce the required grain size and grain structure in the casting in the heat treatment process. And after completion of heat treatment, inspect the casting. Inspect the casting by manual inspection or naked eye inspection, or by hitting the casting with a metal rod. You can listen the ringing sound, and also you can carry out various inspection by using X-ray radiography or ultrasonic testing or fluorescent testing, like a lot of testings are available that you can carry it out in the inspection style. Inspection stage. This is the chart indicates the flow chart for production of casting. Write down. Now I stop at this stage. All of you, please write down your name and USN in the chat box. All of you unmute yourself and write down your name and USN in the chat box. USN in the chat box. Answer or call. All of you unmute yourself. Answer or call. Malhar Vivekanand.
Sir, present, sir.
Who is 19 MA 032?
Sir, Malhar. No, the first name.
Vivekanand, can you listen?
Yes, sir.
Nutan, unmute yourself. All of you unmute yourself. Nutan. Mithun Naik. Akshay M. Patil. Nishchit Gowda.
Answer.
Hemant
Present, sir.
Krutik.
Yes, sir.
Karthik R.
Present, sir.
Hemant KS.
Present, sir.
Dawood Rasool.
Present, sir.
Nayaz.
Yes, sir.
Lohit Kumar. Chandan RC.
Yes, sir.
Jishan Ahmad.
Present, sir.
Nanesh.
Yes, sir.
Vairappa.
Yes, sir.
Akshay M. Patil. Dhanush. Dhanush. If anybody else, please pronounce your name. Pronounce your name. If anybody else. Okay. Now I stop at this stage. I will continue in the next class.